And we're live. Happy Friday the 13th, everybody. Who all do we have in here? Let's see. Big Block 402. He's been waiting a while. Greg McDonald. Ari's in here. Scott, Heavens Mopars. Good to see you. We have Jay from Rapid Transit. Dust Devil Garage. Brian. Tick, tick, tick. 139. How's that duster coming? Jason Fitch asking questions about EGR already. NSB Customs, good to see you guys. Henry's Hot Rod Garage. Boy, there's a guy making headway with the No Name 500. Robert Magny. Did I say that right, Robert? I always wonder every time. Tall Garage is here, and he wants full credit for NIVLAC57 being part of the No Name Nationals. Well, thank you for putting a bug in their ear.
Yeah, what was that? Tall Garage. I think he's the guy that
Ken, by the way,
originally got us to even find the event.
I remember that name.
Yep.
Ken is the guy who has cut two LS heads in half, and he's putting them together on a Ford 306.
Yep, I've been.
So
following.
if you want to see something cool, check that out on his channel.
Yep, I've something that we have always wanted to do is exactly that, except we want to do it with a 240, which is the same as a 300. It's just a shorter stroke.
Yeah.
And we've always wanted to do that, but just never, it's these kind of took precedence just because we've had so much success with them.
Let Ken be the guinea pig, and we'll see what his challenges are.
There you go.
Robert says he's enjoying the Friday night lives, and granddaughter's going to help him make a YouTube channel. Yep, very cool. Get some content on that 318 stroker, because I want to build a 318 stroker for my van. Check it out. We have Andrew Nelson in the chat. How incredibly talented. Mopar Den's in here. Chris Greenaway has been resurrected from the dead. We have Patrick, Mostfield Parts and Rust, Greg McDonald, and Lunar Outlaw Garage, all in here so far. Well, got a lot going on this Friday evening. Glad you guys could join us. D. Scaglione's here, telling everybody to hit the like button. Very cool. Yep, everybody's jamming. Dutch Guys Garage, all starting to come in now. Cool. Dizzy Izzy is here. A lot of guys from the Roadkill Customs No Name 500. Mopar Man 1978. By the way, we call him MM78. That's what we shortened it to. MM78. That's like his nickname.
There's Buzz.
Roadkill Customs is here. Glad you could make it. All right. Well, cool. So I want to do something a little different. There's no shortage of cool people to talk to on these Friday lives now that we have folks getting ready for the No Name Nationals. And I've spent a lot of time with the channels trying to get to 500 subs early in the year because they needed our help early. And so we still are definitely doing that. But now we're trying to reach out to the established channels to see what you guys are working on. Because you guys have been quietly working through the spring, and now it's starting to get really serious.
Yeah.
So I go to your About page on your channel, and you have 16 cars listed in your stable on the About page.
Yep.
That's got to be a record. And more impressive than the 16 cars is what they all are. Yep. You guys have about one of everything. So it's like there's not any theme there.
Yeah,
the Fairmont. You have two Fairmonts.
Yep.
The Datsun, the Pontiac, the Studebakers.
Yep.
So what would you guys? What is your theme? What is your common theme? Just going fast?
Pretty much. I mean, we like the GM power plants, so I would say is a theme. Just about every single one of them. Yeah, every single one of them's GM powered. So that would be a theme, but we're definitely, I would say we're Studebaker guys, but obviously we like all cars.
Yeah, we like any form of racing and anything that we can excel at and not destroy our budgets because, we're working people. So, having a love for land speed racing, is something that I've had since I was a kid, and that led to the Studebakers. And the 6-cylinders were something that I did as a kid and then stopped doing it. And then when Calvin came along, he picked that torch up, and it's been a mainstay for the channel.
Well, now since you mentioned that, it's a good opportunity to bring this up. I'm going to show you some pictures, and I want you to tell us about these because I think this is really cool. You guys come from a family that just goes way back with performance automobiles.
Yep.
So I'll put it up, and then you tell us about what we're seeing.
That is my great-great-grandfather's race car that he had in the 19-teens. We don't know any history of that car in particular, but other than it was raced in the New York area.
Over 100 years ago.
Yes, sir.
Wow. Wow, that's incredible. Okay. This picture is really cool, too. It's really cool to have a picture this clear from that far back.
That is a group of guys hanging out. Leon Wilkinson is my great-grandfather. He built that facility. He built planes, modified planes, did boat work, and you can see the group of guys that are there. That's part of their gang, for lack of a better word, that hung out. And the car in the middle is actually the hot rod that they had. I actually have a picture of that car. Later got wrecked, but yeah, that's neat. That camaraderie and the union of guys hanging out together. Yep. That's my grandfather, who's the baby, and my great-grandfather, who is standing next to him. And the car next to that is their hot rod. And that picture is somewhere around 1914, 1915 time frame.
That is incredible. That is incredible. And this, I thought, was just so neat.
My grandfather built that. That was the first school bus for the Locust Valley High School in Long Island, in Nassau County, Long Island. That is their first school bus.
So this comes more to present day, okay?
That's the car sitting behind us. That is the one we're thrashing on to try and have it ready for the No Name Nationals.
Yeah. So these guys don't fool around.
Yep.
Today,
that's not for show.
Yeah, today the wastegate piping got put together, and the header Calvin had built the other week, and he worked on the intake manifold today. I worked on the wastegate piping and mounting up the one wastegate, and we had a very, very productive day.
Now, what led you guys into that road using that 4200 Chevrolet? It's just an unusual thing to see. I mean, obviously you guys have been into speed but since you could walk. It's a family thing. It's in the genes, right? How did you go down that path? Yeah. And what kind of stuff did you start with? What kind of cars? Like, what were your first cars you turned wrenches on?
Well, my first car kind of relates to how we got into these, so I guess I'll tell that story. My first car was a 1963 Studebaker Lark. It's the car that's in the profile picture of my YouTube channel, and the car that has one of these engines in it. Well, that was my first car, but my first hot rod that I, actually was able to drive and enjoy was a 64 Nova. And it had a 250 inline six, and I was just about to put, I should say, my uncle was sort of obsessed with hopping up the inline six in the thing, and he gave me a whole bunch of books and speed parts to install on the 6-cylinder, and I sort of fell in love with the 6-cylinder, but never really got to install those performance parts. And I was just about to install a rebuilt head that Dad had rebuilt for me by a local shop, and a Eaton supercharger onto the thing that I had fabricated my own little mounts to mount the thing, and made the belt drive and the tensioner and all that stuff work. And I was just about to install that, and I got into a car accident with the thing, and the thing was totaled. I was just driving down the road. Somebody pulled out in front of me, four-wheel drum brakes, locked up, couldn't stop. And, his car was totally fine, but my car was, totaled.
Totaled.
Yeah. So, since then, I've always had a love for 6 cylinders. And, when I was doing that supercharger setup, I was sharing it on the Grassroots Motorsports Forum, and a lot of people were, oh, what about this 4200? What about this 4200? Well, at the time I was developing that, the 4200s were not affordable. I mean, they were still relatively new. So it just wasn't in the cards. We had never done an EFI conversion, let alone, a 6-cylinder with VVT and all the other gizmos and gadgets that offered. So, a couple years went by, eventually I worked cleaning garbage trucks while I owned that 64 Nova. And apparently I talked about that 64 Nova a lot and how I wanted to put a 4200 in it at some point, and the 6 supercharger and all that. And I talked to my one coworker about it a whole lot. And, I had since moved on, graduated college at that point. And I ran into this old employee that I used to work with. And he's like, hey, did you ever do that 6-cylinder? And I was like, no, I didn't, but I should. And within, I think, a week, we had a Trailblazer with a 60,000 mile engine sitting in the back of it, at the house. And I started the process of installing it in my 63 Studebaker Lark, which had an LS in it at that point. So that kind of started the journey. And I've always liked inline 6s because of the sounds. I'm very much if it doesn't have the right exhaust note, or it doesn't make a noise that makes me smile, then I can't stand it. Like it's there's certain engines that it just doesn't do it for me. Like a V6, it doesn't make me happy. It's just, they sound awful.
Let me ask you, because I'm unfamiliar with that engine. Okay. What years did they have that? What did that come out of? Where do you source the ones you use in your builds? Because you've got several.
Yep. So they were in the 2002 to 2009 Trailblazer chassis. So that includes the GMC Envoys, the Isuzu counterparts, the Buicks, whatever, all the Oldsmobile, whatever. So they all got them. But if you haven't noticed, go for a drive. They're everywhere. They are everywhere. Like you will not be able to drive without seeing a Trailblazer or its equivalent. It's just, those things are everywhere. And our local junkyard has, I think the last time we counted was 30 of them. Just sitting there in the junkyard, just, probably going to get crushed.
Running engines with bad transmissions.
Yep.
Yeah.
The infamous 4L60E.
Yeah.
And, if a 4-inch stroke, whole bunch of torque, makes quick work of that. So, that you can find them for next to nothing. And, the other part of it is they're just so painful to work on in the original chassis. So most of the time, like if they have any like little tiny issue, it's just like, screw it, I'm done. I'm buying a car that's easier to work on. And, we've been able to get engines from Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace. We've never actually had to pull one from a Trailblazer yet. There's actually a Trailblazer sitting out like right behind me. That will be our first one. But it's funny because people like contact me and like, how do I get this stupid thing out? And I'm like, I don't know, I never did one.
Yeah, that's interesting because I know that I've never looked twice at those, and I would never have thought that they'd have had a good platform for performance build in them.
Yeah.
I bet you guys hear regularly, why don't you run an LS? I bet you get that question 100 times. Why don't you run an LS? Because there's so many people doing that now. But I like what you're doing better.
Yeah, I mean, we do LS. I mean,
Even Nova has an LS.
We've got four of them right now that are running. We've got a turbo LS in the.
There's the first one we blew up.
Yeah. Yeah, we got a turbo LS in our Sunbird that it has gone 9.0s on the foot brake at 150 miles an hour. Next time out, we hope to be in the.
This one got me my NHRA competition license.
There you go.
We've got a one that we used to have a supercharger on an LS in the Nova with nitrous, and that was our no prep car for a while. Now it's a twin turbo car.
That was the one of the rods out of the Nova when it blew up.
Oh, gee.
We've got an LY6 in the Camaro. It runs 1130s, and then we've got a LS3 and a 66 Ford. So we love the LSs, but the channel kind of grew around the 4200 because we were spending so much time on it. Every time we do something on the LS, we do see a lot of response, positive response, both in subs and in amount of viewership on the LSs. But one of the goals, I don't want to.
Yeah, I was just gonna say off of that. It's funny what I hear a lot from folks that how to get big on YouTube. It's find your niche and stick to it. So the 4200s, you can't find any information on it. I mean, other than the stuff that we've put out there. We've pretty much. Any information you find on it is like pretty much from us anymore. So we found a unloved but very potent platform, and we've just been running with that as much as we can. And I think that there's still a lot of room to grow, but it's funny now that we have an audience how. Now that we do LS stuff, like when we did LS stuff before, no attention. But now that we do it and we have an audience, all of a sudden, like we're like in the algorithm, and it all of a sudden starts to take off, like more than the 4200 stuff anymore. And it's kind of funny. I would think, oh, we haven't had success with the LS stuff in the past when we tried to put it on videos and stuff, but now all of a sudden, like now it's like. The algorithm wants the LS stuff. It's kind of funny, but sorry.
Well, I mean, so what is it about that 4200 that you like? If you're just being objective and you say, okay, I can use any inline six I want. What are the selling points for that one? Because I've never worked on one.
Well, let's start with the six-cylinder in and of itself. The packaging of the V8 makes it very attractive. It's very short, and you can get a tremendous amount of power out of it. But when you look at the amount of force that you can put through an engine and have it stay alive, you can't discount the potential that a straight six has. There are terms that you'll hear out there, power load overlap, which is when you go through a V8 engine, 1.8, 4.3, 6.5, 7.2, 2 and 1 fire on the same crankshaft throw. And what it does is it overloads your number 2 main bearing. And that's where cross-bolted mains and 4-bolt mains came from, is trying to harness all that energy. Not only do you have 2 hitting the same throw, but you have it hitting at angles where things can shift and move around. if you look at the modern day LS, they revised the timing on that, and it transfers that overlapped power load back further in the block, and that's one of the reasons that it is so much stronger along with its architecture. When you consider a 6-cylinder, all of your loads are in relatively a straight line, and it's 1, 5, 3, 6, 2, 4. So the load is transferred to the 4 main bolts, 2 caps, and it's never got this overlapped power load. So that's just one part of the conversation. The 6-cylinder is an extremely strong architecture, and you look at the 2JZs and a lot of these other 6-cylinders that the Barra engine, guys are just getting phenomenal amounts of horsepower out of them because their design allows for so much force to be put into the block without overloading it.
Yeah.
As far as the 4200, I'll let you talk about their attributes.
Yeah, the 4200, we got into, or I wanted to get into that because I wanted a Barra, and the problem with a Barra is we didn't get them. The Barra was a engine that was introduced in Australia. It was only introduced in Australia, and it's become legendary over there because they didn't get the truck LS engines and that sort of thing. So that was pretty much their only option for really high performance stuff. And they put it in taxi cabs and all kinds of crazy stuff, that makes it super easy to find. And there's guys that are boosting them things to ridiculous horsepower levels. And, there's guys making over 2,000 horsepower with a stock block with those things, obviously forged rods and pistons, but I'm a fan of Mighty Car Mods, another YouTuber on the platform, and they did their Cresta, Toyota Cresta, with a Ford Barra engine, and as soon as I saw that, I was like, I want one of these things, but I'm not paying $5,000 to buy an engine, that might blow up, so. My mind went back to the 4200, and I'm like, well, this has very similar bore, very similar stroke, and very similar attributes to the Barra. It also has an aluminum block instead of an iron block, which could be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on how you look at it. And so I was like, well, why don't we give this a shot? I've heard enough people talk about it, and there's this legend that the GM was doing twin turbo testing on these 4200s, and they made over 1,000 to the crankshaft, and there's this local legend of these things have massive potential that who knows if it has any any reality to it at all, but. So that's kind of how it arose. I wanted an inline 6 because I like the way that they sound. It's a very even frequency. It's always, whereas a V8, you're getting uneven pulses on either side, and you're sometimes getting, you get sort of a harmonic sound. Whereas an inline 6, it's just do 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 do.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the perfect. It's a sine wave. It's a perfect frequency. It's like a musical instrument. I'm weird like that, and I like that perfect. It's the 180-degree headers that were on this car before when it had a V8 in it. They essentially do what I'm saying. They take the pulses from the V8 and they make them perfectly spaced out apart. And that just sounded amazing. But that's hard to accomplish. Yeah. So
the reason a V8 sounds like a V8 and it has that whoop, whoop, whoop sound is because, 18435, the firing.
657.
Yeah.
Yep.
8 and 4 fire back to back. 5 and 7 fire back to back. And what happens is when 5 discharges and 7 discharges, 7's trying to discharge into a packed exhaust. 8 and 4, 8 discharges, 4 follows, and it's trying to discharge into a packed exhaust. And that's why the V8 has that whoop, 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 whoop sound as it oscillates back and forth, because you got the double percussions of the sequential firing order. So 180-degree headers unbundles that, and you take, 1, 4, 6, and 7, run them together, and 2, 3, 5, and 8, and run them together. It spreads out the exhaust pulses so that in the end, you can actually run a smaller exhaust system and a lighter exhaust system by having it unbundle the sequential discharges.
Yeah, I mean, if it just go watch the video, the video that we did on this car. Right towards the beginning, you'll hear a sound clip of what this thing sounded like with 180-degree headers. It sounds like a Formula One car. It's just got nice, smooth frequency. It's a musical instrument.
Now, how long have you guys been working with turbos?
I started working with turbos in 93 or 4.
Wow.
It was well, that's a long-winded question. I was involved with some race teams that were involved with the Buick before the Buick came out with the Grand National. Back before the Stage 2 block came out, Kennedy Bell and others were heavily involved in Econorod, and I got to see some of that early development of the Buick engines when they had Stage 1 external, Stage 2 internal blocks. That was, very rare pieces that were out there. Shortly after they had developed the Stage 2 is when the turbos came out, and about that same time is when I was starting to get involved with turbos. I unfortunately didn't have the fuel management of today's EFI available to me, so I was trying to do everything with carburetors, and it didn't take long to make shrapnel like what's on the wall of shame over there.
Yeah.
I showed you a few bits, but I sent one connecting rod. I don't know if it landed yet, and that was somewhere around 95 when I launched it. And so I got heavy into nitrous after that, because nitrous was much easier to tune.
Okay, he can still hear us.
All right. We're good.
Yep. Let me fix that.
I'm just shocked that the technology problem's not on my end for once.
Yep.
Okay, so I got into nitrous pretty heavy because the it was easy to tune with a carburetor, as opposed to the turbocharger, where your mass air density changed, and there was no good way to properly fuel it. I did more with draw-throughs than I did with blow-through. And so fast forward to when he grew up, his interest in the electronics, his interest in EFI, his interest in the turbochargers just became a natural extension of something that I had already tried to do. And it's funny, we've as he's been doing things, I've been pulling some of these old charts and things out from my archives of things that I had worked on back in the 90s, and they're still relevant today.
It's pretty cool, though, because you've got generational knowledge to draw from and refine from. And that's a pretty cool place to be.
It's been neat as we've had the opportunity to work on these cars together. A problem will happen, and I'll point out this is what it is, and he'll give me a look like, what are you talking about, old man? And I'm usually right.
I chased an issue on a tune. I was out of gas. And he's like, you're out of gas. And I'm like, I'm not out of gas. I just put gas in it. And then I went and checked the fuel tank, and yes, I was out of gas.
It was pulling just enough fuel to let it idle, but as soon as you put some kind of a load on it, it would draw air.
Yep.
And I could hear it.
Yeah.
What was I, 50 feet away or something?
Yeah. So I was sitting in the yard, and I was just like, this stupid thing. Why won't it work? And it was working so good before, and now it doesn't work.
But then
you're out of gas.
We've all done stuff like that, but I appreciate that you guys are humble enough to admit it, and we can laugh about it. And it's funny because, if there's people that have a right to have some swagger, it's guys doing what you're doing with the stuff you're doing it with.
Yeah.
And yet you guys are so nice on that even keel. And I've always been impressed by that. For you guys who don't know, I get an email from Andrew about the No Name Nationals, and I've not dealt with anybody else. He knows to the foot how much pit space he needs to set up his pits, and it's just this exacting thing, this planning. And I'm like, these are some really specific people. These are really detail-oriented people, and we're going to have exactly what you need for your pits. But the thing is, people who do that, they know how to get the tune really right. I think we're going to give these guys a good chance to put down some numbers, and looking forward to that.
We hope to put on a good show. It'll be new territory when we get there, because we plan to, cut this thing loose pretty good. We'll do a lot of dyno testing and sort through it. I don't know if we'll have the built engine to put in it, but on the stock bottom ends, we've already been able to get 824 horsepower to the tires out of these things, and that's a lot of power.
If you guys are not in the chat, if you're not currently subscribed to NIVLAC57 channel, you need to check it out. If nothing else, click on their preview, their trailer. It'll hook you pretty good.
Yeah, you're gonna see all kinds of crazy stuff, like this weird front wheel drive thing pops up.
Yes.
We don't talk about that.
I'll talk about it.
Yes,
he still has nightmares.
Yeah.
I like how the younger generation steers away from the front wheel drive, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm all about it.
Yeah, that's because of experience.
Well, it's funny because Calvin has had the luxury of growing up in an age where track prep, everywhere you go, tracks are well prepped. Back in my day when I started racing, if you didn't go sideways at least once on a Friday night, it was shocking. You were down 200 horsepower, so driving a car that is out of shape and out of control is something I'm much more comfortable with than he is, and I'm glad for that, because he's never had to go through the trap sideways on two wheels at 100 and something miles an hour. And my big block Nova did that on more than one occasion, because, the track prep on a Friday night was non-existent. They would sweep the track off, and that was track prep back in those days.
Well, what are your thoughts on the new no prep wave that's come about in recent years?
I enjoy it, but I hate it. I enjoy it in that it has put a lot of emphasis on the tuner. It has put a lot of emphasis on power management. What repulses me from it, and we got into it, our first two no prep events, we made it to the final round. And unfortunately, the games that are played, the constant changing rules, the inconsistency of rules, and frankly, the conduct of some of the participants are all things that pushed us away from it. I am far more attracted to consistent rules and better conduct, and I hope I'm not offending anybody who participates.
No, I'm glad you're saying that, because I say the same thing, and I appreciate it.
Yep.
Well, we have a lot of good friends that participate in it. And if they ever get it organized to the point where there's consistency in rules and in conduct, it's something we did well at, even in our limited involvement. Our again, our first 2 events, we made it to the finals.
Yeah, we're both engineers, so just the fact that you can't like just go and test, a lot of these like airport events and stuff, like, can I just go and test? Like, or does every single time we run the car we lose money? Like if we don't get it right, like, it's just, it's, I'm not a fan of, personally, I don't like it just because I want to go fast. And no prep racing, you're doing, everything you can to go as fast as you can, but you can go so much faster on a prep surface and not, put yourself at such great of a risk. And I prefer, a prep surface for that.
It's very rare. A lot of the cars, and we know some guys who are very fast on a prep track, their cars are in the 450 to 470 range. And they are, you go to Dig or Die, you go to some of these other bigger events, they're much better. The handling of those events are better. But you got guys that can barely get into the 5s with a 4-second car. I'd rather go 4 seconds on a prep track. There's a big thrill about going fast.
Yep.
Well, question. So what is the fastest 4,200 in the country? Because that's such an unusual engine, at least from what I've seen. What do you think?
It's probably one of the Selfs, the Kevin or Glenn Self, which they recently passed away, unfortunately. So the 4,200 is very popular in like competition eliminator, which is a class in NHRA. Right. They do some sort of a cubic inch versus weight of the vehicle or something to somehow, and that somehow has made the 4,200 an ideal choice. I mean, the cylinder heads on them are pretty impressive. A 4-valve architecture is just, it's going to flow better. So it became very popular in competition eliminator, and the Selfs at Self Racing did a whole bunch of development on it. They've been in the 7s, but what we have, they're all forged rods, forged pistons, top of the line stuff. What we
and they are race cars.
Yeah.
The fastest door car that we know of is Louis.
Well, I don't know if, he's Leo Santucci. So it's funny. The one of the gifts that I got with the Nova that I talked about earlier was a book called Chevy Inline 6-Cylinder Performance Guide or something like that, and it was written by a guy named Leo Santucci, and he owns a Studebaker. And what do you know? He recently 4,200 swapped the thing. And he actually, we sell a couple parts for the 4,200, coil adapter kits and whatnot. And he actually bought parts from me. And so it's like this big circle that just, came all the way back around. This guy, I read his book dozens of times, cover to cover, and
both editions.
Yeah, I have both editions of his book, and now he's buying parts from me. So it's like, it's kind of neat, but he has a Studebaker. It's a Vortec 4,200. It actually has, so for those that are familiar with the 4,200 lore, there's a very infamous 6-cylinder that competed on Drag Week. It was in a 66 Chevy Nova or Nova 2, Chevy 2, whatever. And it went 8 in the quarter mile at the very first Drag Week, but it cheated. The guy who was running the car, John Cunningham, they cheated. They trailed the car between, I think, the 4th and the 5th day. And it's a very, if you're familiar with the history of Drag Week, that is part of it. And they tried to sneak by the rules and get away with it. And But yeah, it's they, you know, if you think about it, it's actually kind of neat that was 2005. The 4200 came out in 2002, and these guys had already figured out how to get the thing to go 8s in a station wagon. So yeah, that's the Self guys. So you know, I got to give them tons of credit. Unfortunately,
The Selfs weren't the ones that cheated, though.
no, the Selfs had
The
nothing
Selfs
to,
provided
yes,
the engine.
They provided the engine. You know, they had nothing to do. But yeah, I have nothing but respect for those guys. But they didn't share any information. You know, you tried to call them on the phone. I tried to call them on the phone before they passed away, and they wouldn't pick up. You know, I tried multiple times, multiple different ways. Just like, you know, I actually have friends of a friend who is friends with the Selfs, tried to get a connection that way, you know, and they just, you know, they didn't have time. So, you know, and everything I've heard is they're very secretive about any of their information. You know, they've spent a lot of time.
Comp guys.
Yeah, I mean, you know, they've spent a lot of time and put in a lot of money in figuring this stuff out. And if they spill the beans, then they're giving their competitor an edge. Like I totally get it, you know, but
What's been absolutely fun and hysterical is how many people are paying attention to what Calvin's been doing, what we've been doing, because the power numbers that we're making far exceed what some of them have made, and we're doing it with all stock parts.
Right.
We're
That's
pulling
great.
out of the junkyard
going.
and putting them in the cars and going 9s.
Yep. So going back to the Selfs and that infamous Nova at Drag Week, that engine is now in Leo's Studebaker. So that is the current fastest door car that we are aware of, and it has gone an 8005, I think.
Oh,
Okay, an 805. So very close to a 7.
no, that's hard, man. If it'd be a few degrees cooler, he'd be in the 7s.
Yeah, yeah.
One less cheeseburger.
Well, yeah. Unfortunately, he hurt the engine, and they just recently got the thing back together, which is why they were buying parts from me. And so we've become, you know, more of a, you know, good friends with them.
George Landis.
Yeah, George, the guy that works on the car. So that's the quickest. But if you're talking about the quickest stock bottom end, that's us. So we've been at 978 at 137, and we're hoping this one is a whole lot faster.
using essentially a stock short block or close to it.
Yep. Well,
Stock rods.
yeah, stock long block.
Yeah, we've been in the 9s with the stock intake, stock exhaust manifold, the whole 9 yards.
Jeez,
Yeah,
that's incredible. Say a couple questions. Something else I'd like to ask you about. Ari's asking, have you ever read an article called "A Sizzling 6"?
no.
No, which 6-cylinder is that about?
Yeah, what publication?
Well, we'll Ari, give us more info on that.
Yep.
Frank says it's a 62. So you know Frank.
Yeah.
So tell us about his car.
Well, after Calvin had his wreck, he wanted another 4-door, and I was into Studebakers, so we got a 59 Studebaker, and we didn't get it finished in time for him to drive at the high school, but it became a fun car that we put together, just 350 4-speed 9-inch, and we took it to street rods and had a ball with that car. And as things have changed because of COVID, my employment situation changed. I had to make radical changes, and that was one of the cars that was sold. And Frank has become a good friend. I really appreciate having the opportunity to see that car go to the next level. He had me put a Ford 9-inch with a ladder bar suspension in it.
Now, something you guys do that I know nothing about, but I think it's really cool, is land speed stuff.
That is an absolute love for me.
All right. So where do you go to do this? How do you prep your cars? It's a whole different world.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about doing that.
It's Bizarro world. Let's start there. I grew up, in an era where Hot Rod Magazine was our, go-to resource for everything hot rod related. And I've been a subscriber since the mid 70s. And my favorite issue every year was the land speed coverage for Speed Week at Bonneville. And so I love that event so much that when I found old hot rod magazines, I would buy them and read them if they were the Speed Week coverage issue. I've got them going back into the early 60s, and I think I might even have two from the 50s. But long story short, I've always loved land speed racing because you have a very strict set of rules that you have to comply by. They enforce the rules, and the fastest guy gets the record. And what attracts me to that is the fact that you have to have your crap together. There's no faking how fast you're going. It's clocked. There's no faking that you put this thing together and it meets the rules. They look at the car.
What are some big differences between, let's just say, going to a national event track, quarter mile, where they do a pretty good thorough tech? What would be a difference between that and land speed tech as far as enforcing the rules?
Well, it depends upon which tracks you go to. Bonneville, they tear you down. They go through the whole process.
Wow.
East Coast, you don't have that level of inspection. The car has to comply. They don't do the teardowns. But what you will find is that on NHRA racing, or any of the big sanctioning body racing, to be competitive, you've got an investment in cost to keep those cars running at the highest level that is extraordinarily high. When you look at super stock engines that get tore down every 20 to 25 passes, and you're sinking huge dollars into the engine being overhauled, or you look at Top Fuel, Top Alcohol, Funny Car, they're into those engines every single pass with an army of people. You look at Pro Stock. Warren Johnson used to invest over 200 hours into a block prep.
Right.
That kind of investment is insane. With respect to the fact that, while I appreciate every form of racing, I don't care if two guys are racing scooters. If they're in competition, it's a fair competition. I'm cheering for somebody. But, I can't afford to chase any kind of racing on that level. In land speed racing, while the rules are very strict, you don't have to have that full level of investment in all the parts. Now, some of the high top end teams are always going to have that, but there's still enough classes and enough opportunities to run records on far less capital investment, and you can be competitive if you're smart about what you do. One of the biggest challenges that you have is, and people don't think about this, is a car without a wing, a tail wing, a gas coupe. And that's my favorite class because gas coupes, you got to drive those things. There's no downforce in the rear. Our Studebaker, that model car at 160 miles an hour has 540 pounds of tail lift.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Yeah, at 180, it has 710 pounds of tail lift. And what I was finding is that from 160 miles an hour up, I was spinning tire all the way to, the fastest we got that car to go was 179.6 miles an hour. And it's amazing what you learn about shock and about rear end control. We were able to gain 5 miles an hour just with changing the rear shocks. The other big difference between drag race and land speed is your front suspension is closer in setup to an autocross car than it is to a drag car. There are a lot of things you've got to do to control the rebound on that front suspension and keep that front end down, because once you start getting air underneath the thing, the stability becomes compromised.
What kind of interesting experiences have you had driving them? Because you're getting to a high rate of speed. You're taking longer to do it than you do on a drag strip. What's it like at that kind of speed? What does the track feel like when you're, like, say, on salt?
Well, we've never been on the salt. We've only done asphalt and concrete.
Okay.
But the best description when the tires aren't grabbing traction to describe it as is driving on ice really, really fast.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, if you're comfortable with it, go for it. You know, the Studebaker has a 120-inch wheelbase, and there's nothing near you. If something goes wrong, you're going to spin, but there's nothing to hit, because the land speed community is very, very focused on safety. There is nothing near that track that if you have the worst day, short of barrel rolling, if the car loses it and you go into a spin, you're just going to slide until you come to a stop. There's nothing to hit. Maxton was one of my favorites. And I'm going to go back to your question, the first part of the question. One of the things that I found at Maxton, that track was very bumpy. There was a bump at the 5/8 mile mark, and I could tell that I was on a better run than another run and learned how to drive around this one bump at the 5/8 mile mark, and I could pick up almost 2 miles an hour just because I didn't go into a tire spin and have to pick it back up. And the cars with tail wings have enough downforce that they can just motor right through that. The gas coupes typically are very light in the back end, and you are driving the car and they're moving around constantly, and especially once you run out of horsepower. Because when you run out of horsepower and your acceleration rate is down to, and we would get down to 0.03 Gs of acceleration at the top end of a 179 mile an hour run, you're starting to stall out against the air. And once you've come to that point of equilibrium, that's when the cars just start moving around. When you have forward thrust because you have enough power to push through, cars are much more stable.
I've never tried anything that quick. It's interesting to me. The other one thing that you've mentioned on a live before, I think, is neat, is the differing standards and the dates on your safety belts. The track to the land speed stuff. I just find it interesting. You say they're so focused on safety, and yet your belts have a 5-year life.
Yeah.
Speed.
Well, they're also aware of the fact that they aren't treated like your weekly NHRA or drag car event. These things are 2 events a year. You know, so your exposure to having mechanical damage is extraordinarily low, and your the UV is probably the only thing that's going to cause these things to decay. They don't just rot because time is eclipsed. There has to be some kind of environmental influence to cause the things to decay. Now, in drag racing or dirt track racing, it's going to be a mechanical influence.
Yep. So Aaron Henry, our friend down under from Australia, says he thinks it's an interesting conversation. Yeah, I do too. This is very different. We've never talked land speed on this channel before, I don't think. Yeah. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, it's Calvin brought up something. One of the things that you get used to when you're out there and you have a traction limited vehicle, my tach would jump from 7,300 to 8,100 every time it would break traction.
Oh, wow.
So you're just watching this tach and it's just.
Yeah.
And you can see it. You can see it in the data. You can see it in the. You can hear it in the videos. It's absolutely amazing how violent that unloading and loading is, and it's called jackhammering.
Yeah.
You literally will jackhammer your transmission vertically apart, your cluster gear being on the bottom. I knew when a transmission was going to expire because the cluster gear would start to leak. And I knew that I only had 1 or 2 passes left in it before it would strip the gears out going through the gears, because as you're going through the thing, can you leave that open? As you're going down the track and it's pounding on this thing, it's 73, 8100, boom, boom, boom. It's hammering on the transmission. It's stretching that thing apart.
Mom wanted to stop in and say hi.
Howdy. Thanks for stopping in.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, got a good crowd here. We're learning a lot of new stuff. This is uncharted territory on this channel, talking about land speed and such.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Yeah, we got Turlo's Garage says people talking about the crashes. I would imagine you have a crash at those kind of speeds. They're spectacular, but overall, I'm sure they got a better track record than drag racing. No pun intended.
The rollovers that happen when the cars dig in as they start to roll over, most accidents that occur, it's just going to be a flat spin.
Right. Yeah, you know what? There's a few folks in here that have heard of the 4200 and done some stuff with it, and most haven't. So this is pretty cool. I'm getting to learn a lot about it.
Yep.
What is your plan of attack for the No Name Nationals? You have any specific goals that you want to, anything you want to try to hit there, ET wise, or anything else?
Well, if we can get the 4200, if we bring the stock bottom end and it goes faster than a 526, I think you're going to have a hard time finding any stock bottom end 6-cylinder that's ever gone faster than that, and we're going to give it a shot.
526 is the number, huh?
526 was a recent number set by a 2JZ.
Yeah. Stock bottom end.
Stock bottom end.
Yeah.
And we're kind of confident.
All right. We want to see it. That's pretty cool. Now, do you guys have anyone that specifically that you want to race down there?
No, we're open. It's the other car that we're bringing is our Nova, and we can very quickly dial it up or dial it down. And
I just think it's just so funny to me because we've had all kinds. People have been all over the maps with their call outs for the No Name Nationals, right? Some people have really enjoyed it. Some people have not liked being called out. And you guys are sitting there with some crazy fast cars. Yeah, we're open. It's hard to find anybody that wants a piece of that. I think it's great.
Well, I can tell you this much. I've been hold on.
He can still.
Okay.
That's okay. We're good. We can hear you.
Yeah.
When if we do get called out, I've been absolutely enjoying the videos on guys calling each other out.
Aren't they fun?
They are absolutely great, and most of the guys are saying the best 2 out of 3. Well, if somebody calls us out, I'm going to tell you that it's going to look like this. It's whoever wins the 3rd race. I don't care if you beat me twice, because I'm going to turn the dial.
Well, it's interesting because we've got some guys that are one and done off the trailer. We've got some best 2 out of 3. We've got one money race for $4,000 one and done off the trailer, $4,000. And we know we're not telling them what to do, what they can and can't do, but it's interesting how some of these people are approaching it.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't mind seeing you guys pick a fight with another fast car on a fast channel. I think it'd be fun.
Well, I'm sure we'll get lined up at some point, and it's having raced for 40 some years. I know that off the trailer is not something that's going to be the most practical way to get our car down the track. We run small tires, so we're going to have to figure out how to manage the power down low before we pour on the coal. And So again, it's we'll leave it up to whoever wins the third round of any kind of competition. Will take the bragging rights.
Now, one thing that I can't take for granted is that you and I occasionally talk about things, but I got to remember to bring these guys up to speed. Tell them exactly what you're planning on bringing to the No Name Nationals, so they'll know on your channel what you plan to have there.
So the one car is the car that's sitting behind us. It's we've recently revealed it on our channel. It's a 1974 Datsun 260Z, and we are in the process of putting a twin turbo Vortec 4200 into it. We're doing a few things differently than we have done in the past on these engines in an attempt to make it go quicker than anything we've done in the past. So one is we're installing it in a much lighter car, and it is also much more aerodynamic than obviously the Fairmonts and the other cars that we've installed them into.
Has a stretched nose, which
Yep.
I've never seen on a Datsun before.
Yep. So
It looks almost like a funny car crossed with a Datsun.
Yep. So that front end is a all fiberglass front end. We made that here, like right here.
Yeah, right here.
So it's basically, you know, taking a steel front end that's probably hundreds of pounds, and I think that thing weighs what, like 40 pounds,
42 pounds.
Yeah, 42 pounds. It's fairly unique. I mean, the reason that we did it was my dad wanted to land speed race the thing, which we probably still will do at some point. But the lengthened nose makes it more aerodynamically stable, keeps it going straight, longer wheelbase and all that. So we plan to, as I was saying, we're doing a couple things differently. One, we're not going to use an intercooler on this one, and we want to run methanol. So we actually just got done putting a second row of injectors on the intake, and we're doing 2 turbos instead of 1. That's more for aesthetic purposes than anything, honestly. I mean, people say it'll spool faster, and they're probably right. But we're trying to get we're trying to make a clickable thumbnail. I'll just say that.
Well,
So-
Mopardin, you can't call it Pinocchio because these guys are telling the truth. These guys will back up what they say.
Yeah, we're still trying to come up with a name. I mean, I came up with the poor man's pro mod, essentially. You know,
It kind of looks like it does look like a pro mod inspired Datsun. It's just different. There's nothing else like it.
Dad, I said poor man's pro mod or poor mod, and my dad's like, well, how about po mod? So
I like three deuce Datsun. It's got 2 fuel systems, 2 turbos, 2 wastegates, two this, 2 that, and we'll come up with some clever name for it.
Yeah, I'm liking poor mod.
Yeah,
I think that's pretty cool.
But the other car is going to be our Nova. For anybody who's been on our channel, there's the D-stroke Nova.
Yeah.
We've made 1,010 horsepower to the back tires.
Whoa, man!
And running it at a low boost level, that car's gone 862 at 161 miles an hour.
Okay.
So
I got a picture of the Nova.
Wow,
There's the Nova.
yeah, there it is. So
over 1,000 to the wheels.
Mhm.
Wow.
Which, again, we got to see what the track conditions look like to see how high we go on that output level. The car is very comfortable to drive at around 700 horsepower, and I've not tried to make a pass with the car. I say it's very comfortable. The car was spinning tire and moving all over, getting all jacked up on me, doing the 158 to 160 miles an hour, but the track was only 47 degrees. There was no prep on the top end of the track, and just had to hold on and go through it. But our big goal there was to get enough data on it to get a torque converter data on it so that we could do some gear changes. And we've got a small list of things that we want to do for the car to bring the boost in quicker, so that we can leave softer. We're going to be more on gear, less on gear ratio. We're going to put more gear into it, tighter turbine housings, and a few other things that, if the traction is there for a small tire car, it should be fun to watch. It's easy to go fast with big tires. It's not easy to go fast with small tires.
I got to tell you, I think it's downright frightening watching those cars skate around at those kind of speeds. But more power to you guys to do it. I think it's cool.
Well, it's quite frankly, it's the most peaceful place on the planet. When you're out there and it's you and your car and the good Lord, you are very aware of your situation and your surroundings, but it's the most peaceful place in the world to me. I used to love the top end charge on the land speed runs, because you'd hear that engine just screaming its guts out as you'd be coming through the top end, and it was just peaceful.
Now, you guys have obviously developed your program a long way, so we got a wide range of people watching, right? What's probably been your biggest learning experience to get to where you are now? And maybe if there's one thing you could have done different in the evolution of your learning and your building and all of that, one thing you may have done different, what would it have been over the years?
I would say, that those kind of go hand in hand for me. Don't be afraid to try. Like, you'll be surprised at how easy it is. The LS stuff, there was a good period of time where I was too scared to, push to actually do it. Once we finally did it, it was like, oh, this isn't so bad. So I guess one thing I would have done differently is not been so scared to give it a shot. And so yeah, that's definitely my advice. Is just this car actually was the first car that we ever did a LS in, and I remember wiring up the wiring harness and getting all the wires, and I'm like, is this even gonna work? And we had a friend over that had done it before, and we started it up the first time, ran flawlessly. Like, it was just like I did all my research, I did all my homework, everything just worked. And if it didn't work, the computer told you exactly, oh, it's this wire, this circuit, this system, whatever, look there. And I think, actually I should say, it didn't go perfectly flawless. It had a cam sensor issue, but it still ran. And it was like, oh, well, I just got to go look at the cam sensor. It threw a little code, and it was just like, oh, well, this isn't so bad. So it's just, a lot of people are so scared to just try stuff, and it's just do it.
Well, a lot of people don't want to risk their ego to try it.
Sure.
Because they're just more afraid of failing, stifles, the want to have success. Yep. Shout out to Jeremy Finley. Thank you so much for the super chat. Jeremy is a second generation racer. So we're going to be doing some stuff with him on my channel, hopefully here soon. So Jeremy, I'll be in contact with you, but thanks for stopping by.
My biggest learning lesson in life is going to sound a little odd, but get involved in big events sooner. It took until I was in my late 30s before I would get involved with hauling a car to Florida for a race. And as I discovered, and ultimately, we have done things as a family, it's the bigger events that are just so rewarding. And it's terrifying at first to, throw two young kids in the back of a extended cab pickup truck and hitch to a trailer and drive 1,000 miles from home. I always enjoyed having the security of my tools being very close by. And, when I heard about the No Name Nationals, it took a millisecond to make the decision to go drive 800, 900 miles to come to the event because the bigger events are so worth it. We've done Drag Week 4 times. We've done the Top Speed Challenge 4 times. We've gone to Maine Racing twice. We've gone to the Grassroots Motorsports Challenge in Florida. 17 entries we had over the course of time, and just going to the bigger events is something that it costs more to get into them, but it's worth it. In a month from now or 3 weeks from now, we're going to be at the Midwest drags in Ohio and Indiana. So if there's anybody on the live stream that's going to be going to that, reach out to us. Let us know. It'd be nice to collaborate on some video stuff for the No Name.
Well, one thing that we want to keep true to this event is it's a big event, but we want to keep it the grassroots. We want this event to stay within the YouTube community, right? So even our celebrity entries are still people who are YouTubers.
Yep.
Everybody involved with the event is a YouTuber. The person doing our signs is a YouTuber. So we really want to keep this community centered no matter how big it gets. And since the Family Garage asked, what's my shirt say? Someday people who own a Ford are going to want an automobile. John Dodge. I wear that when I hang out with my Ford friends. I can't resist.
Yeah, I've got a favorite Ford shirt that I wear around my friends too. But we're actually we tow with Fords because we want to get home. We race Chevys because we want to go fast. And guys, don't be offended. I'm a Dodge fan too, so I like them all.
Talking Mopar says define celebrity. Celebrities would be people like Albrecht there, Talking Mopars. That's actually a good channel. Chris Albrecht does a good show, podcast, Talking Mopars. So I would check him out. Anybody have any questions? We want to engage the chat as much as we can. As I say, whenever the Nelsons hit the chat, I always say the chat just got a lot faster. So here you've got them one-on-one. They're here. If you have any questions, it'd be a good time to ask. See, we like to ask before we approach the weird hour because we start getting comments like this. We know Danny Boyd; he's a regular, but we try to head off the weird hour. Henry's Hot Rod Garage is asking where you guys are from.
York, Pennsylvania.
How far are you from Carlisle?
39 miles if you go the B line, but the faster way is about 50 miles.
Okay. Well, this channel is going to be live from Carlisle that Friday night with Mopars at Carlisle. So I want to say Thursday, July 14th is the day I'll go down. So if 15th is that Friday, we'll be live, and you guys will be more than welcome to join us. We have a group of guys who were at the show, and you can hang with us, and we go live that Friday night.
Yeah, I think we had already penciled it in for the 15th to come up. I think we're meeting you at the hotel.
Yep, you certainly are. We got the Host Hotel, the Best Western there. And any of you guys who want to come to our live and you're in the area or you're at Carlisle, you're welcome. We just come on and just let us know. Roadkill Customs is mentioned that he's added Turlo's announcement to his playlist. So go to Roadkill Customs if you want to check out these announcement videos and these videos for the No Name 500 guys. They're introducing their channels to the broader YouTube audience. Chris is making an open call out to any other podcasters going to the No Name Nationals. Mm-hmm. Chris is actually, he may be our longest caller yet, because even though we've got several guys from Canada, he's coming from the west coast, the northwest corner of the country. I want to say, what are you, Chris, about 2,200 miles?
Wow.
You're planning on coming out?
That's impressive.
And then Heaven's Mopars is pretty close. He's right there in that same area. He may be shipping his car. And then we've got Wasted Talent Fabrications. I think he's 2,186. And he's driving. So we've got a lot of long haulers coming out. Big Mike says he's heard Pennsylvania is a good place to be from.
Hey, we were just commenting that yesterday that we're looking forward to meeting Big Mike. We've been enjoying his videos, but we may have other reasons we want to meet him now.
Dutch guys, they say they'll be driving one of their 78s. So I'm planning to, fingers crossed, planning to bring my 69 Roadrunner that I drug out of a big thicket of weeds, okay, in the fall, and trying to get it all together to drive there. But Don English, and you'll see him in the comments, Don and Wendy English, they have a pair of matching white 62 Valiants, and they've got a third space so we can all pit together. So we're going to have two 62 Valiants and a 69 Roadrunner that identifies as a 62 Valiant, and we're just going to try and pull it on the field and see what happens. I'm hoping that they'll judge this Roadrunner. I would really like the concourse car show people to judge it. I'll be lucky to have 3 panels the same color. I really don't care.
That's my style.
Yeah, and talking Mopars, his car is called the Dumpster Fire.
Nice.
Have you decided on the engine now that the 318 is not going in?
Oh, man, I got so much grief for that. I was really thinking about dropping the 318 in, but they had some good points about trying to get the linkages and stuff like that. Motor mount brackets I don't have. So I probably may just do something boring like a regular big block Mopar. I would love to have done a 350, 305 Chevrolet just to set the internet on fire. Purely for that reason.
I had a few of those cars in the day, and transforming it from a small block or from a big block to a small block is not. You're going to have a lot of time in it. You better spend finding a big block.
Well, I'm going to work out something. I'll figure out something. I've got some leads. Really, it's going to come down to how much the car itself needs. So we really have people all over the spectrum. You know, we got people like me that are trying to make stuff run that we drug out of the woods. We've got other people coming to No Name Nationals, dragging stuff out of the woods. Then we got guys like you that, you know, you just, your stuff's together. You just want to see how quick you can make it.
Nope. Well, we still got a lot of progress to make on this one, but
yeah, this is like everything, and it's been started since the announcement of the event. We've only been working on it 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
Yeah, about 2 weeks, and it's you know, it's going to take everything from ECU install, fuel systems, the whole 9 yards. This is not for the faint of heart.
Yeah, indeed. So one of our moderators here, Blake from Bad Tree Productions, if you are not already subscribed to Bad Tree Productions, check those guys out. I'm a real fan of their Nacho Cuda. In fact, I have the piston that came out of their Nacho Cuda. That was not a good day.
That's a bad day.
Yeah.
That was a bad day, but they're getting it ready. I told them I'm glad it happened, you know, in April, so they have time to get their new mill together to bring it to the No Name Nationals.
Were they able to figure out what the cause was? I know.
I don't know. What was it, Blake? What actually caused that? What was the cause of that explosion? J. Russell Finch has a question here for you. What's your preferred engine management system?
That's sort of it depends. You know, it depends what you have access to, but I prefer the Max ECUs that we've been using more recently, but you know, sometimes, you know, it doesn't make sense to, you know, they cost a little bit more. So the Mega Squirt stuff works great too. But you know, if all else fails, you know, a lot of the stock ECMs have a lot of potential. Also the Holley EFI stuff has a lot of potential. I mean, it's kind of like, you know, learning a programming language. Once you've learned one, it's kind of easy to pick up another one. So a lot of the ECUs are very similar to one another. So there's obviously advantages and disadvantages to a lot of them, but it's hard to go wrong with anything. Depending what you use, you get more value than something else. So,
Yeah. But
I don't know what a Morgan Freeman mod top is, but it sure sounds cool. And Henry's Hot Rod Garage is asking just rings, question mark.
rings.
So are you asking them about what kind of piston rings they prefer?
No, we don't ring gap them if that's what your question is. They are as they come out of the junk car.
This will probably be the first. What we plan to do on this car is we want to run a completely stock engine, just like we have been on all the other stuff. But at some point, we will install a engine that has forged connecting rods. Whether we do that before the event or after the event, we haven't decided yet. But that will be the first engine that we actually check the ring gap and probably open it up. So if that's what it's about, then there you go.
20 Saturdays is hardly anything. I would agree with that.
Yep. Get to work, guys.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, we've got a pretty good crowd in here, but I like to respect the Friday evening of our guests, so we'll wind it down. If you guys have any last questions, we'll go ahead and get them asked. And this is a good opportunity. You've got some heavy hitters in here to ask questions. They're doing stuff that few people can do, so it's good to ask questions. One thing I do like is you notice a lot of crosstalk in the chat. I think that we have more of that now than ever with this community of people all going to the same event. And you'll see a lot more of them who recognize and talk with each other in chat. That's a good thing. This community spirit has been great.
You know what's going to be funny is, and we've recently run into this as the channel grows bigger, people in public start to identify you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
And I was at our recent flea market that we have here. I had 2 or 3 people come up to me it was 3 people come up to me, and they just started talking to me about stuff that they clearly knew. And
yes,
I'm going, who on earth are you?
Yes.
And it took a while for me to realize that we come into their living room and they're seeing us on their TV or on their computer on a regular basis, and I have no idea who they are. When we get to the No Name National, it's going to be a lot of fun because, there's certain guys that I love watching. I don't want to call out everybody, but, Heaven's Mopars and Big Mike's Hoopty Garage or Barn. I love watching their videos, and I'm going to walk up to them and I'm going to say, hey, and I'm going to say something, and I'm going to be one of those people that they're going to look at and go, who's this clown?
How much you running in that Datsun there? Henry wants to know. Do you want to tell him?
I mean, we haven't run it yet, but we've taken these engines up to 30 pounds. Well, we actually took one up to 40 pounds by accident once, but we've safely taken them to 30 pounds of boost. This will probably see 25-ish.
Yeah, probably in the 25 range. This is going to be a small tire effort. So
now, Big Mike's asking a question here. Do you have any experience with the Slant 6, the Mopar Slant 6?
Nope.
Done anything with that?
Nope. My first car was a 1954 Chevy with a 235. I cut my teeth on the 235, had 230s, 250s, got rid of all them. Then Calvin got the 250, and then 4200s, but never had a Slant 6. I had a lot of Mopars, but every Mopar that I had was either a 340 or a 440, and I had one 383. But wow. I had probably 30 440 cars.
Wow.
It's somebody's asking about fiberglass.
Yeah,
hold
Beth
on.
is asking, tell us about your fiberglass.
Stand it up. There you go. Okay. All right, so we made this hood. A friend of ours taught us how to do fiberglass, and we've been doing it since. But turn it around. We made the. It's cast on a steel. Got to turn it so that the light's on it.
Look at that.
All these contours are basically fenders that got cut apart, welded together, put onto a hood that I extended out 16 inches. The whole front end is made out of pieces that were cut apart and re-welded back together. This is all end cut balsa wood, and
so he was asking specifically about like the science. You still there?
Yeah.
Okay. He was specifically asking about, like, it seemed like he wanted a little more techie question, you know, more like, you know, what kind of resin, what kind of epoxy, whatever. Yeah. So, yeah, my dad just talked about the end cut balsa wood. So when you're doing fiberglass, doing the matte style, where it's just a bunch of strands of fiberglass that are just laid across each other instead of like the weave style, that usually results in a stronger part. And that's what this is. But also you notice these stiffening pieces. So this is balsa wood. And the thing about fiberglass is when you increase the thickness of it, the strength of the part essentially increases by a cubic function. So if you make it 2 times as thick, it's 8 times as strong.
Wow.
So essentially what you're doing with these ribs is you're increasing the thickness of the part, which greatly increases the strength. And also being end cut balsa wood, it has...
it absorbs it, plus all the bonds between the end cuts, between the fibers, make it more stiff.
Yeah. So hopefully that hopefully that answered his question.
Yes. Very light. Yep.
Yeah, we made this hood. Calvin and I did. Let's hang on a second, Calvin.
What? You want to put it on the card? Yeah. Well, you can do that.
Oops, sorry. This is the
Wow.
That's all cut up fenders that were re-welded back together so that this contour matches the fender.
That looks like the Batmobile's hood. That is cool. Look at that. That thing looks fast sitting still.
Okay.
Man, how many of you guys want to see that screaming down the track at Jeffers? That is wild.
Well, once we get it sorted out on the drag strip, eventually it's going to make it to the land speed, and it's going to be fun to see that thing cruise at over 200.
Okay, so when you did the stretch, how much of the stretch is in the wheelbase and how much of it's in the overhang?
It's 16 inches. Basically, I took 2 stock fenders and I cut off what was behind the wheel well opening and welded it to the back end of another. So I had to...
You can still hear you.
Oh, we can hear you.
I had basically made it 16 inches longer, but the stock frame comes all the way out. We just added to the front of the stock frame. And then the front end of the car was made 4 inches longer.
Wow, that's cool. That's cool.
Total of 20. Yeah.
All right, guys. You know what? I think we've had a great evening, and I'd love to have you guys back on sometime because clearly there is so much more we can do. I mean, seriously, there's just so much more. I would love to do like a whole live just on your Fairmont. I mean, there's a whole fleet.
Yeah, that's a cool car. Both of them are. Both of the Fairmonts are both 4,200 powered and both very different from each other in that the Futura, we're hoping to get that into the 8s next time out. It's stock engine, top to bottom, and has a water to air intercooler. with stock intake, stock exhaust manifold that's been modified for the turbo. Calvin's wagon is the car that he's taking on to the drag and drive events, and it's home built intake, home built exhaust, twin or split exhaust plenum for the turbine, two waste gates. It's got the max ECU. As similar as they are, they're very different from each other.
How streetable are your rides? I mean, what will be the most streetable, best street manners?
So, I mean, that's probably my wagon is up there.
The Studebaker.
Yeah, my Studebaker. Yeah, they're both very good street cars. The Camaro that Dad's going to drive is a little bit less streetable. It's a black car and it gets terribly hot, just because it's a black car. But my wagon, it cruises down the high. I drove it to Beaver Springs, which is 100 miles from here, and
ran 978 and turned around and drove home.
Yeah. So
nice.
It's a fun car. So yeah, I mean, as far as streetability, they're this one will not be streetable. It's gonna have like methanol and all kinds of little tiny radiator, and yeah, this is not a street car. And same with the Nova. The Nova's little tiny radiator. You pretty much are coming up to the line cool and getting back to the pits very hot. So
well, I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to see both cars and meet you guys. We're just going to have a blast. And anyway, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up, but we want to have you guys back on because there's a lot of different things we can do and different topics. And I just like to do this again. I think it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, we got old school, we got new school. So we're game.
I'm as old school as it gets. I like breaker points, drum brakes, and stuff that's way too fast to have either.
Yeah. My dad can talk you until you fall asleep.
I love old gassers. So
There you go. There you go. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. I do want to thank my mods. I want to thank Blake from Bad Tree Productions, Just Mopar Joe, Andy from Unity Motorsports Garage, and Fubar the Axe. Do want to give a shout out to Roadkill Customs because he is sponsoring our No Name 500 class. Those guys have become a class of their own. Who would have thought when we started this event that the guys who did not have channels, who were trying to get to 500 subscribers, would be stealing the show with all their hard work? But it's awesome, and we're cheering them on, and Buzz is there to help. I want to thank all you guys in the chat. We've had a great and lively crowd tonight, and thanks for spending some of your Friday evening with us. And I want to thank the Nelsons. Thank you guys. We really appreciate it.
You bet. And John, if you don't mind, anybody going to the Midwest Drags, if you want to, get a hold of us, and we'd love to meet up with you. It'd be fun to collaborate on some video stuff.
Yep. Yeah, by all means, let them know anything you guys are into, anything you're working on, anything you want to do.
Yep.
So feel free. And that also goes for if you want me to share something on my channel that you're doing, we'll do that too. All right, guys, we'll go ahead and shut it down. Y'all have a great weekend, and we'll see you soon. Dallas and I will be live next Friday with some updates with our blueprint of Jeffers Motorsports Park. We've got some exciting new things that we're doing for the No Name Nationals. We're going to tell you about our billboard. Yes, we have a billboard for the No Name Nationals. It's going to be really cool. So we got some cool updates for you. We'll talk about them. And with that, we'll see y'all later.